In 1966, an Australian ship captain, in his small boat, passed by a small deserted island called, but as he looked at the island through his binoculars, he noticed smoke rising from the trees of the forest. He was surprised to see smoke rising from a deserted island while he was looking through binoculars. Suddenly, a person emerged from the trees. This person was only wearing shorts, had long hair, and looked like he was from a local tribe. The stranger, as soon as he saw the boat, started pointing and shouting. Immediately afterwards, he threw himself into the sea. The stranger, upon seeing the boat, immediately began to peel and scream, then threw himself into the sea and began swimming towards the boat. The captain grabbed his rifle that he had on the boat and began preparing to confront this stranger. The person reached the boat, and it turned out to the captain that he was actually a teenage boy. The boy told him, "My name is Stephen, and there are 5 other boys on the island. We've been lost and stuck here for 15 months. Today's video tells the incredible story of 6 boys who escaped from school, only to end up lost and stranded on a deserted island. Without their knowledge, how did this happen? So how did this happen, and how did we manage to keep this isolated place dry for so long? That's what we'll find out in today's story. Peace be upon you." Our story begins in 1965 in a country called the Kingdom of Country Name. This country is a group of small islands in the Pacific Ocean, located in this region east of Australia. The heroes of our story are these 6 boys whose pictures appear before you. They were students in a Catholic school, meaning a religious school. This school was a boarding school, meaning the students not only studied there but also lived there. Their food, drink, and sleep were all at the school. This school had very strict and restrictive rules regarding the students' freedom. They were only allowed to go out 1 day a week, and even then, only under the supervision of the teachers. These teachers, of course, were monks and nuns, so they treated the students very strictly and sometimes even punished them severely if they did something wrong or didn't listen. The 6 protagonists of our story, whose ages at the time ranged between 14 and 16, felt distressed by their situation. Whenever they sat and chatted together, they would talk about a life of freedom and pleasure, dreaming of another world where they could do whatever they wanted. One day, while they were enjoying themselves during lunch break, the eldest boy, Seoni, said to his friends, "Why don't we run away?" One of them asked, "Run away to where?" He replied, "Let's go to Fiji." Fiji was another island in the same region of the Pacific Ocean, larger and more developed than the Kingdom of Tonga, but it was quite far away. So the boys began planning their long journey. The first thing they would need was a boat. But since none of them had a boat, they decided to steal it. The old nervous fisherman's boat had some problems with him before, so it meant a suitable target for them. They wouldn't feel guilty if they took his boat. The boys decided their trip would start at night so they would have time to get away from the island before anyone discovered they had escaped. About an hour after bedtime at school and after making sure that most of the students and teachers were asleep, they quietly slipped out of their rooms, climbed the school wall, and escaped. Then they headed towards the beach where they found the old man's boat, whom they hated. They put their belongings in the boat, raised the anchor, and lowered the sail. They had tea and their belongings, mainly some food and fruit, and they even brought a gas oven to cook the fish they would catch in the sea, but none of them. He thought he should bring a compass or a map with him. The distance from Tonga to Fiji is over 750 kilometers. It means that not one of the smart ones thought to bring the simplest tool that could help them stay on course. Or even if they had brought a map and compass, a trip like this would still be almost impossible for young children who have never been to sea before. The least we can say about them is that they are crazy. It was almost 2 hours since the start of their journey. At this point, they were far enough away from the coast and dawn was approaching. Here the boys started to feel tired, especially since they hadn't slept yet and they weren't used to staying up so late because their school forbade it. So it was a new experience for them to stay awake this late, and little by little they started to fall asleep one after the other until they were all asleep and not one of them stayed awake. The boat had its sail open and the wind was playing with it, moving it in random directions.
None of the boys woke up until they heard the thunder. A storm suddenly raged in the middle of the ocean and attacked them. They woke up terrified, and the first thing they tried to do was raise the sail, because if the sail was lowered in a storm, the wind would play havoc with them. But before they could raise the sail, its fabric began to tear. It was already an old, worn-out sail, and the storm tore it and blew it away. The 6 boys spent the entire storm trying to avoid falling overboard, holding on with their hands and feet. Finally, after a while, the storm subsided and the weather improved. But now the group was in a dire situation. They didn't know where they were, nor could they control the direction of the boat's movement because they had no sail. They remained in this state for 8 days, the sea waves tossing them from place to place. They were just trying to come on their own. Their food and fruit ran out, and the fishing they thought would be easy didn't work out for them. They couldn't catch anything, and even their water supply was running out. They started trying to collect rainwater in the coconuts they had with them. They would take a coconut, cut it in half, and hold the halves like cups to collect rainwater. They even had a drinking schedule where everyone drank the smallest amount possible, drop by drop, because if they ran out of water, it would be game over for them. Finally, after 8 days of suffering like this, on the 9th day, they saw an island on the horizon. This was the first piece of land they had seen since leaving their island. Of course, they didn't have any money to steer the boat to the island, so they tried rowing with their hands and any tools they could find. Luckily for them, the waves were helping them. Finally, they approached the island in the evening, so they jumped into the sea and swam to the shore. They left the boat adrift at sea because they had no way to pull it back to shore. The anchor had broken during the journey. The boys swam to the island, but the boat was lost at sea. As soon as they reached the shore, they threw themselves onto the sand and fell asleep from exhaustion. They didn't wake up until the sun rose the next day. And from here, their journey to safety on this island will begin, a journey that will be much longer than the one they had planned. The island that the 6 boys reached was called Atta Island, and it had been considered a deserted island for more than 100 years. This, 100 years ago. Some of the original inhabitants lived there, and their number may have reached the hundreds, but suddenly slave traders raided them, took them all, and sold them as slaves. They didn't leave a single one of them alive, neither young nor old, man nor woman. They literally kidnapped all the island's inhabitants. And since that time, the island has been deserted. And that concludes the first part of the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell icon to receive notifications for the second part and upcoming stories.